Eh bien, bonjour à tous, je suis de retour avec vous, c'est Anna, pour un live, cette fois-ci avec Luc Yves, le co-créateur de la série CONNECTEZ, qui nous fait l'immense joie d'être accompagné de Maria Albiana. Hola, hi, hello, hi Maria. What a surprise! I'm so happy to have Maria with us, you know?
Maria, finally.
Am I not good enough? Like what?
No, you are, but I think it's a wonderful surprise, you know, because I mean, you're like the perfect couple in Cancel. So having you both here is it's wonderful.
That's good. I'm glad she's here too.
Yeah. Can I say something while we are live? I wish you a very happy birthday, Luke. It was yesterday.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
He had a beautiful birthday.
I did have a very nice day.
Yeah.
Okay. So where are you now? Because I can see trees behind you, a lovely garden.
We are in Lisbon, and we're in a beautiful park overlooking the water. And it was the quietest place we could find.
But all of a sudden, people started singing. So now we have like some live music.
So just as we sat down to talk to you, there's a busker right behind us.
I think it's perfect.
Her, but...
No worries at all. I think it's perfect. You know, it's a live, but it's a cool session. So we're just here just to enjoy yourself. So if you have music around us, I think it's perfect, you know?
Perfect.
Okay. Yep. So, okay.
So this is live, so that's the beauty of life.
Exactly. And I think because of this, you know, COVID situation where we were locked down, we need to add a little bit of joy, of spontaneous and okay. So
very hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Luke, do you mind if I sometimes we ask questions to Maria? Will you be jealous or it's fine?
I'll be delighted.
He will.
Yeah, I will.
I'm sure he will. I'm sure he will.
Happy, but then be devastated later.
Yeah, I need to ask him, you know, before, you know, it's because he's the guest, you know, so, okay. So when I ask something, so feel free to answer, you know, either Maria or Luke, you know, I mean, so since you're here and we are waiting for people to join us and they might be with us now, but while they will be preparing questions for us, can you please just talk about, you know, the genesis of Cancel. I'm sure that we did that like so many times, but, you know, we love the series and I feel like, you know, it's really amazing what you did. It needs so much courage, you know, to do that because you had to deal with a personal situation where the emotions were involved because we can tell people that you were talking about your real marriage, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, I think it takes a lot of courage, you know, to be able to overcome the situation and you know, and just say, okay, let's do something about that and turn it into positive. Can you just?
Where shall I start? Shall I go?
Let's start with how it
Ladies
started.
first.
Back in March, while we were in Spain.
Back in March, we were in LA. We both live in LA, and we went all the way to Spain to get married. I'm from Spain, so. We arrived and like 2 days before the wedding, we had to cancel the wedding due to the pandemic. Your mom had just arrived to Valencia and one of his best friends too, because we never tell that. But at one point we were like 4 people in one same house and complicated.
Yeah.
And and so your Luke's mom didn't travel at that time. We decided she had to stay for a little bit because we thought, well, we didn't know what was going to happen. I think we were all quite took by surprise the pandemic, and so we thought that maybe because she had such a long flight from Australia to Spain that she should stick a little bit until things calmed down. But of course things never went down. It just like escalated very rapidly and things got very complicated. In Spain, we had a very, very strict lockdown.
Yeah, I know.
And we were stuck home for like 3 months without leaving the house, like not even going out shopping. We had a person that normally did all the grocery shopping for us. So your mom never left the house ever, like for 3 months until she actually left to Australia. And you want to tell them about now the series, like the part of the...
Well, so I think it just took a little while to come to terms with what was happening, you know, not just on a personal level, but on a worldwide scale as well. And so for the first month, I think we were just a little bit shocked, as most people were. And then I was actually in communication with Screen Australia about another project. And I made a joke to them about a COVID sitcom. And then as soon as I sent the email, I realized that maybe it was actually a pretty good idea. So I talked to Maria about it, and we quickly wrote back to Screen Australia and said, actually, I think we might have something unique. And in a way, it kind of was, because we wanted to retell our story. So it was scripted, but it was very much sort of based on the things that were happening to us. So it was very real and very sort of current. Like, we wanted to make it very quickly and release it while everyone was still in lockdown, so that it felt like people could relate to it. So it was just the three of us on a mobile phone, and it was a crazy experience.
Wow. And so when you decided like to write, you know, something, a story about what was happening, so did you like wrote everything like at once, like in a row, or did you like rewrote some scenes because of the situation, that the pandemic, I mean the news that were changing and everything?
No, we there's 10 episodes, and we scripted the 10 episodes.
Okay.
It is true that maybe in some scenes while we were shooting, we realized that maybe it wasn't working, or something, we missed some, like a point, and so maybe we rewrote a scene. I think episode 10 did change, like it was the last episode, and so it was written, but we did leave it to kind of live and breathe a little bit and see where all the other episodes were going to take us.
I think mostly it was like we shot with episode 10. I think we shot some stuff, and then we didn't put it in the edit. So there was very few scenes that we actually re-shot or rewrote. It was quite surprising, and I think it was because it was happening so fast anyway. Like we were living it. We wrote it, and then we were shooting it all so quickly.
Yeah,
so there wasn't a lot of time. It wasn't like there was 6 months later we went, actually, let's change it. So we didn't really have that time, or that privilege, I guess, you know, that luck. So, but I like that it felt spontaneous and authentic, and it was quick, and I think it gave it some energy, which was good.
But we did stick to the script in general. So
do you think that writing this story about what happened to you guys kind of helped you to deal with the situation on a, let's say, on the emotional, you know, side of things? Do you think it was kind of to heal you from what was happening? Because when you cry, you know, Maria, because you're on the phone, and you said to someone like, I need to cancel my wedding. I mean, we feel that it's like it's you're crying because you're canceling your wedding. It's just horrible. It happened to one of my friends like 2 days ago. She had to cancel her wedding, and I was like, wow, you know.
I guess we were actually living it for real. Like when we went through canceling the wedding, I think it happened so fast, and we were actually active. Like we had to call so many people. Luke was very worried, of course, about all of his family and friends were coming from you know, overseas. So that was like a big stress for him, for both of us. But he was like on the phone talking to people, and people were like, do I have to jump on a flight now, or should I stay? And he was like, I don't know what to say to you. So I think the actual, like, the reality of what we lived was so fast that I think personally I didn't went through all the emotions, and once we were shooting it, I had to. So I think it was maybe more painful having to recreate it in a way, or going through exactly what I went through.
And also, like when it got cancelled, the wedding, we went into lockdown like 24 hours later. So the main focus for me, but I think for both of us really, was looking after my mum. And so here we were, like, we had to cancel something which was very emotional. And for me, for a couple of days there, I just didn't sleep. My phone was ringing nonstop because of different time zones and different people flying in. So it was very emotional. And then as soon as we cancelled, it was really just about, okay, we have to go into lockdown, we have to go shopping, we have to look after mum. It was just all of those things. So I think then by the time we went to film it, that was kind of when most of the emotion came out. I know it was for me when we had to do scenes when we were crying at the beginning and calling people, it was easy to draw on those things and to, I remember that day when we filmed you crying, like you almost couldn't stop at one point because it was tapping into what you weren't allowed to do previously, I think. So
yeah. So your mom, because it's your real mom, Luke,
yeah.
it's your mother.
Real mom.
Well, it's not an actress, So she got stuck in this situation, and she had to become an actress. Is she like acting, or she's an actress, or no?
No, she is like the total opposite. She is the shyest. She hates getting her photo taken. She gets really freaked out about anything to do with like cameras or mobile phones. So, I mean, my poor mum, she flew in and we met her at the airport with, I think we're going to have to cancel the wedding. And so it was very like, and then we were like, okay, now we're going into lockdown. And then it was like, now we're going to make a show out of it. And every single
Oh my
time,
God.
Like, okay.
Every time she was just like, okay, whatever it takes. Like she was
Lovely.
amazing.
Yeah.
She never complained. And I think at the end, she kind of liked it, to be honest. So
I think she was done.
Yeah.
By the end of it, I think she was really done. She was like, I'm done. I think we never really told her what was she going to go through.
Well, she came here with one suitcase for 2 weeks. She was meant to come for the wedding and then some partying and then she was going to go home. But 3 months later, and suddenly she finds herself as like this weird internet sensation for a month or so. People became real fans of hers. So it was very, very strange.
So how was it, Luke, for you to be with your mother, because it was not it was not as if you decided to do that. So how is it to be with your mom and shoot a series with her, in this situation? How did you deal with this situation? I mean, it's totally crazy,
How did you? Tell us, Luke.
Like sometimes I look back at it and think, what did we do? Like it was the weird, like it definitely, I mean, for everybody this year, it's been the weirdest year of their life. Yeah. But I think being stuck in lockdown with your mum after cancelling a wedding is weird, but then making a show about it is even weirder. So I don't know. I think all of these things just started, happening. I guess we just ran with it. Like to be honest, I think while we were making it, I was stressed and it was a lot of work. But I do remember thinking many times how lucky I felt to be able to be with, the two people that I love the most, and then to make a show about it. So that will never happen again.
And exploit both of us.
And exploit both
at the same time.
Yeah. So, and I've been warned that every project from now on has to have my mum in it. So, yeah.
Well,
we just ran with it, but it was actually, it was a beautiful experience, to be totally honest. So.
And she's good. I mean, she's good at acting. She's really good.
Yeah, we were careful to, I knew she was shy, and so we wrote very short scenes for her, and tried to just tap into the things that we knew she would be good at. And my mum is very funny. She's very sort of dry. So I was super proud of her. She did great.
And and what I love about Cancel is that despite the situation that is like a dramatic situation, there is a lot of humor, between you guys, jokes, and there is a scene, I think, where you were supposed to organize a lunch between your parents, Maria, and Luke's mother, but your parents are not coming. So then you are just, let's say, arguing a little bit about which chair, who should sit where, and I think it's super funny,
Oh, good.
Yeah, I think that's what actually happened to everybody in the pandemic. I mean, we all went through very dramatic times, but I think inside that very big dramatism, we had a lot of comedic moments, and I think that was the whole, and that was real for us, but also for I'm sure that for many other people.
Yeah. And how did you manage, the technical side of things? Because you had only mobiles, you had nothing, to shoot. I mean, how did you?
Complicated.
It was complicated. So there were, just the three of us. And so we used Maria's phone to record sound. So we would try and place that on a table or close by or near one of the actors.
Yeah.
And then otherwise it was often we were in the scene together, but also holding the camera. So it was very complicated. We had to plan. we had to plan everything. So the scenes that Maria and I were in together, often
we weren't together really.
one of us would be holding the camera and faking the eye line.
Like maybe looking to the wall or a painting or nothing.
And then try and place the camera on a little tripod that we had, or leaning against a wall if the three of us were in it. So it was very tricky. And then I wanted to try and have movement. So we were sometimes in a scene moving the camera, and then we would pass it off to the next person to keep the moving going. It was just a bit of planning and thinking, and it was kind of organic, to be honest. Like often we would rehearse a scene, and I would think about how we would want to shoot it, and it would sort of just come together as we were sort of blocking the scene through. So it was kind of fun.
And of course, what you haven't mentioned is that you had to teach your mom how to use the camera, because even if it's just a phone, it's not just like holding a phone. It's not that.
Yeah.
It's much more complicated. And yeah, I'm like the mobile era. I was born in like the mobile generation, but still, like, Luke had to be like, no, do you realize he was very picky. So most of the times we would repeat just because of that. And I was like, it looks fine. And he's like, no, it doesn't. I'm like, okay, let's go back.
Well, it would be hard because I'm not an actor. And so we would do scenes where I was like, okay, I'm just going to go for it. And, you know, it called for me to cry sometimes. And I would do that. And then I would get the camera back. Like Maria or my mum was operating, my fucking head was chopped off. And I was like, what the hell, you know? So I was very kind of picky about trying to teach them, like, framing and composition and things. So it was kind of funny. But I thought by the end, Maria became an amazing camera person. And one of my favorite scenes is when we were sort of dancing in the street, and it was us two dancing, and my mum was operating the camera.
We have a
it's just amazing. I mean, I think it's like the most challenging project of your life, not ever. I would say that, no?
It's funny, like as you know, we were talking during the week, and I had just made a feature film back in Australia, and of course a feature and it was big, you know, it was like traveling across the whole country, and it was a really big project for me. And then here we are, just three of us in a house with a mobile phone. But for me, it was like much more exhausting and more challenging making this series because of all the logistical hurdles,
lighting, everything.
And having no crew, and you know, trying to think about everything. And trying to act and think about camera and direction at the same time. It was amazing. Yeah, I learned a lot.
One thing about that, one thing positive that we should, is that, you know, when you are like in a critical situation, like in a emergency situation, you are in the capacity of being super creative in finding solutions. And it proves it, like what you did, because you know, when I was watching the series, I was like, is it true that they just use mobiles? I was like, but how come they did that? You know, I was watching the episode and I was like, no. How is it possible? You know, how can they do that? And so,
I love, I think, to be honest, there's something really nice about having restrictions. Like, I think it makes you think more creatively.
Clever,
like you have to think about, because you have, you know, all filmmakers have these grand ideas in their head about how they want it to look. And we're often stopped by budget or logistics and so, but with this, we just had to be really creative. Like I used to be a huge fan of, you know, dogma cinema, and I loved the restrictions on those films and how creative they were. And in some ways, I guess that's sort of what happened here. So we just had to think outside the box a little about how we could move the camera and keep it exciting and test one another.
And I think also you were a bit surprised because, of course, neither your mom or I would like normally work with the camera. So sometimes we were like, oh, we're going to do this. And he would go like, no, you can't. And then he was like, wait, maybe you can. You know, so I think that out of the box thing, we were kind of out of the box in a way. Yeah. So
both you and Mum would go, what about if we put the camera over here? And I'd be like, that's not going to work. And then we would do it and it worked. Yeah.
So the less is more, huh?
Yeah, for sure. It's made me actually think about the next project. In some ways, I would love to shoot a feature film on a mobile phone next time around, maybe. And try something a little bit more freeing, you know? Because yes, even though there's like huge restrictions, there was a massive amount of freedom as a result of that. You could experiment and try different things, and I love that. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah. Do you think we will be able to enjoy your behind the scenes at some?
No, because we were behind the scenes already. So we were behind and in front of the scene. So there was no one behind us. That would have been super weird. Like the only photos of behind the scenes is the ones that I took of Luke. I have like no photos of behind the scenes. Like no one took photos of me. So it was really complicated because we didn't have any more phones, because we would use mine, like Luke's, and then your mom's one for like prop. So we'd never had any other phone.
Yeah.
We had an iPad and we would maybe sometimes lean it against the wall and just try and do a time lapse or something to try and at least film some sort of behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were short too many crew members.
Okay, so let's talk perhaps of your other projects. I mean, either past projects or forthcoming projects. Maria, are you a director, or you direct sometimes? Or
I've directed, but I've never directed any film or TV. I've done a lot of theater, musicals, and operas. So I'm really, like, I think after Cancelled, I would like to try. The same way that I think Luke now wants to try being acting again, at least. Not being an actor, but trying, So, yeah, I mean, we've got a couple of projects together.
Yep.
And, one of them I wouldn't mind directing at least 1 or 2 episodes. So, yeah. And I've been writing my whole life because I'm a journalist too. So I normally write. So that's, but with Cancel, it was pretty amazing because it's been my first English project.
Mm-hmm.
So that was important for me. And
Can you tell us, Maria, sorry, about your project that you showcased at Marseille Web Fest? I think it was in 2014, and then in 2017, something like that, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah. That was my first web series. I didn't know at that time what a web series was, and I remember they called me for the audition, and I said, "We're gonna do a web series." I'm like, "I don't know what that is. I don't want to be involved." And now imagine, I now even run a web fest back in Spain.
Yeah.
And I'm about to marry a guy who's like top 1 web series.
Yeah. So you both come from the short form ecosystem. So you, Maria, what was your activity? Because you said you're a journalist, so you were a journalist before being writing series?
No, I'm an actress, a dancer, and then I did my MA in journalism. So my main career is acting, so that's what I do normally. But I love writing, so I do keep that up, and dancing. So, and I run a film festival too in Valencia International Film Festival. I run the short form section. So I do a lot of things, but what I do the most is acting.
Okay, so what projects are you involved in Spain? Mainly in Spain or elsewhere, like in Latin America? And
well, we're living in LA, so that's where I'm based right now. Even though we had to fly here, and then a lot of projects got canceled for me. I had a international co-production going on that just stopped. So I don't know what's the situation right now. I think it's quite tricky in terms of shooting in Europe and all around the world. I think everyone's kind of like don't know what's next, and I think production is going to stop for a little bit, or if it keeps going, I think it's going to be very expensive. So
and are you like connected to the short form industry in Spain? Can you tell us what happens there in Spain? Does it occupy the same place as it is here in France, in Spain, the short form series?
Well, I run the short form section in. Sorry, because the phone was about to fall. In the Valencia International Film Festival, we did have to postpone our festival. So we're doing it now in December. And we just hope that we can actually run it. It's going to be a physical event, even though we're not going to have workshops or Q&As like this one. But we are going to have physical screenings. And I know Bilbao Web Fest is also happening right now. So, but there's been a lot of festivals either canceled or postponed. And in terms of short form in Spain, I think France and especially Australia and Canada, for example, they have like a lot of like big funding for short form. And I think in Spain we lack a little bit of that, or if we have funding, sometimes it's linked to short films, which is kind of weird because it has nothing to do with short films. And that annoys me most of the time, because you're competing with short films and you're like, well, it's not really. So I think having a short form section inside a film festival is very important for industry people in general, so they realize that it's also storytelling. We are part of the film industry. And so I fingers crossed that next year we can actually do it in June, which is actually our our date. And
Okay, we hope to. Luc, because Maria was talking about the funding, I think it's really important because you mentioned that during the masterclass that we released on the platform earlier today, this morning. I think that Australia is quite mature, in terms of funding, and we understand from the masterclass that we watched that the producers, the audience, the media, they are conscious of the importance of making this format grow, because it occupies a real place, in the audiovisual ecosystem. So, do you think that it's because of that in Australia we see so many, such an important creativity, and there is a high quality of production. Writing is sophisticated writings and.
Yeah, I think, for some reason, Australia has always had a really strong sort of audiovisual community, and I think we've always managed to generate a lot of like real talent, in terms of like cinematographers and sound designers, writers, producers. We've got like a very sort of rich history there. And as I was saying in the masterclass, I think what was really interesting with web series is that, thinking about it a little bit more as well since our talk, Australia is like, it is a huge country, and we have also been very isolated from the rest of the world. It's like a 24-hour flight from here back home, and another, 14 or 15 hours between Australia and the US as well. So we're very isolated, very separate. And I think web series allowed creators in Australia to connect with their audience very quickly. Whereas, we weren't able to do that in the past. And so I think with web series, Australian creators jumped on it very quickly, maybe quicker than maybe other parts of the world. And then I think we've been very lucky in that we have, Screen Australia, who's an amazing organization. They are responsible for funding film and television. And then we're very smart in recognizing that short form was a new format that needed to be supported and pushed.
Yeah.
So they were, very quick in coming on board that and supporting a lot of short form creators. So we've been really lucky in having, funding there. But I think at the end of the day, even if you've got funding, it's still about storytelling. And so, yeah, for some reason, Australia is just very rich with that, which is great.
I also feel, sorry, just because of what Luke was saying, in terms of funding in Australia, I find the bureaucracy, would you say it like that? The bureaucracy of getting the funding easier. And I'm not saying that it was easy, I'm just saying it was easier than in Spain. In Spain, we just have to go through so much bureaucracy and paperwork, and it's so complicated, and seriously, it's tough.
Yeah.
That I think that makes that the short form content, I think, lacks of support and making things a little bit easier.
Yeah. Like, France, I think, is somewhere in between the two, like, because the funding is not, we have a funding system that is now starting, to recognize and to support every year more and more. But what we have in France is like the festivals, like Marseille Web Fest that started like 10 years ago. Yeah. So the promotion side of things, it was there, it was set up, but then the funding hasn't followed, the same at the same speed, Yeah. So I think we need to make them meet at some point to enable, creators to be more comfortable, in in creating, but it's changing. Like we can feel it. We see that the situation is evolving. So
I think the more we push, I think the more we push as a community to make things, rise the stakes and have better quality, then I think the world or the industry will start seeing us differently, and I guess we would start having like more funding and more support in that way.
Yeah. Definitely. Luc, can you, because during the masterclass, we didn't have a chance really to talk about your previous series. Can you tell us a bit more about Low Life and High Life?
Yeah, so Low Life was, wow, how much time do we have? Low Life was like the first web series that I made. And I had just moved to LA from Sydney. So I was looking, I guess, for a project that that I knew that I could generate, quickly and with not a lot of money. And also because of just moving to LA, I was trying to use it as an excuse to meet other creatives. And also I had wanted to, for a little while, play with the short form format, web series format. And so I thought Low Life was like the perfect sort of, first foray into that. And also, it's a story about a 30-year-old guy with depression. And so it was sort of semi-autobiographical. It was something that I was drawing on and was able to tell something, from the heart, I guess. And then weirdly, I had been a director for about 10 years previous. And then strangely, that series, even though we'd made it for very little money and was probably the most successful thing I had done at that time. And in fact, it was the result of playing at the Marseille Web Fest that it then led to really the next steps in my career over the next 5 years. We screened at Marseille. Canal Play saw it and awarded us with a big award. And then were very keen to see what I had next. And so I pitched to them the idea of High Life. And High Life is a companion series. I wanted to continue the mental health trajectory. And so that's about a 17-year-old girl with bipolar. And Canal Play came on board and semi-funded it. And then we were able to go to Screen Australia for the remaining money. So, and so that was amazing. Then High Life ended up touring around and going to all these festivals. And then it was really the success of High Life that helped us get the feature film off the ground that we just finished. So because it was the same team that had made High Life, and we were in the background for many years trying to get this film off the ground. And then I think people saw the success of High Life and wanted to then support us into the next big step, and that was our film. So in many ways I've got like a real soft spot for Marseille Web Fest. I've been unashamedly sort of saying it's my favorite festival, and I think it really changed the trajectory of my life. So yeah, I'm very thankful for that.
And it's our third time in Marseille Web Fest together.
Yeah, we've both had 2 previous series there, and this is our third together. So, which is nice.
Yeah. May I ask you if you met at the Marseille Web Fest? Can you share with us your team?
No, that would have been the perfect story.
But actually I was there in 2014. It was in 2015.
Okay.
And then I went back. I wasn't back, but one of my shows was there in 2017, and
you were meant to be there, but I was there.
Meant to be, and but you were there, exactly.
So
okay.
It's a very long story, but we were meant to meet at Bilbao Web Festival. Antoine Dissel introduced us, but we never met in person. But it started a communication between us that led to a whole year later finally meeting, and then now here we are engaged. So yeah.
Wonderful. So we wish you all the best. I mean, enhorabuena para la boda.
Muchas gracias.
And I want a picture of you at the wedding. Please, you send it to me.
Oh,
we'll put it on the
even better, we'll send you an invite, Anya, so you have to come. So.
Okay, so thank you so much. It's time now to wrap up. I hope that you had a good time. I did personally. I love being with you.
We did.
Thank you so much,
Maria, for joining this interview, this live. Okay, so we wish you all the best, and I guess I see you next year in Marseille.
We hope so.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. Thanks so much.
So thank you, goodbye. Merci à tous d'avoir suivi ce live avec Luc Yves qui nous a fait la surprise, Maria nous a fait la surprise de rejoindre Luc. Je vous rappelle que la série Cancel est disponible sur la plateforme, ainsi que ce live qui sera aussi disponible. Je vous dis à très bientôt et je vous retrouve tout à l'heure à 16h45 pour un live avec Rob Edwards. Merci, au revoir.